Your fonts are boring. At least my fonts don't look like a psycho killer. And I'm Ken. Welcome to part 4 of our font art in Inkscape series. This one, we're going to show you how you can do text on a path, including on the top of a circle and the bottom of a circle, or even a square or a triangle. Basically, any kind of line. So let's go. In this part of our series, we're showing you how you can put text on a path, such as just a wavy line, or a circle, a square, or really any shape you can draw in Inkscape, as long as it's made up of lines and a path. To get started, I'm going to use the line tool, and I'm just going to kind of put in this jaggy line. And when you're using the line tool, it'll keep going and each click places a point. If you're done and don't want to place any more lines, you just right click and it stops. Now I want to add some text, so I click. Now I'm going to choose something a little more fun. And probably just a little smaller. Now if I click, so there's my text. Now to put this on the path, I just have my text selected using the pointer tool. I've already got that all done. And with the pointer tool, I just hold down the Shift key and click on my line. So they're both selected, and I can tell because of those arrows and the dotted lines. Now I go up to text and just say put on path. And there you go. So there's my text on the path I made. Now it doesn't look that great at this point. It's kind of got a weird shape and all the text is jumbled together here. You'll also notice that it looks like the text is just sitting right on that line. While I still have the pointer tool selected, I can click on my text and move them around. And if I move the path, you'll notice that the text moves with it. But if you do the text alone, you can move the text without moving the path. But the fact that they're connected like that is going to help us in this next step. I want to change my path a little. So clicking on the path to select it with the pointer tool, I'm going to switch to the node tool. And the first thing I want to do is I've got this jaggy path. I'm just going to make sure by clicking and dragging with my path selected with the node tool, I just lasso, and that let me select all the nodes. In this case, they all turned blue to let me know they were selected. Now I can go up here, and at the top there's some different node examples. And the last one, the semicircle with the circle on it, that will make my selected nodes auto smooth. So with all my nodes selected here on the screen, I click that, and it makes things a little wavier. So that's a little bit better, but it's still not quite perfect. I can still have this node tool selected and come down and start manipulating my line. So some of these curves were just a little too sharp. I'm going to kind of smooth things out a little. And you'll notice, because I changed the size of things, some of my letters are going off the end and disappearing. I can just kind of continue to manipulate so I have a path that's big enough to hold all of my text just by clicking and dragging on my nodes. And I can even adjust some of these curves a little. If I wanted to have more of a curve over here, I could by clicking and dragging on the handles. So there's a lot of flexibility here by playing with your path after you've attached your text to it. Some other things I could do is maybe I'm not happy where my text is starting. I can use the text tool still, because this is still text up here, and click into it. And remember, a little shortcut is you don't have to select everything to move things around with the movement keys. I can just click once and everything to the right of the cursor is going to move. And I just go to my keyboard and do Alt and the arrow keys, or Alt and Shift and the arrow keys to move it in bigger steps, and I can move my text around on the line by pushing things to the left or the right. You can move things up and down. That will just spread the letters out or kind of scrunch things together if you're moving it up or down. So both of those could have effects that you might like. But you'll also notice, just like it was when we were resizing the line, if you move things past the beginning or past the end, they'll kind of disappear. But all you have to do is adjust things and your text will come back. Nothing's lost. When your text is done and looking how you want it to look, you can choose the pointer tool and click on your text to select it, and then go to Path, Object to Path. That's what we've been doing the whole series, to take text from being a text element to being our font art objects that we can bring in to Design Space. Before we save this, we want to get rid of the line down here. So now that we've made this into its own path, it's not tied to this path anymore. So we can just click on it once to select it with the pointer tool, and then hit delete on the keyboard. Now the only thing left in our document is our new font art. And just to finish this, we'll go Object, Ungroup, so everything's treated as its own individual character, and then Path, Union. That was important, so Design Space will treat this all as one piece instead of each individual letter. And we can save this, and I've actually already saved it. So when I do save, it's going to just reuse the name I've already given it, which you can see at the top of the page. But we've covered saving in our other videos, so you should be familiar with that, saving it as a plain SVG. Now I've already brought it into Design Space, and you can see a little bit of a difference. Design Space is really losing a lot of the detail in this case, and I guess that just depends on each font and how it's designed and what you're going to get from it. If we switch back to Inkscape and zoom in, it's kind of got that nice detail on it, but that's maybe a little bit too much fine detail for Design Space to handle, especially for cutting. I really wouldn't want to cut this font. But what you might be able to do is draw it. So using one of the fine line pens, if you select it in the layer and switch it over to right, it still doesn't look so great here. When you write it with the Cricut Explore, it may come out pretty nice. So I'm going to give that a try. I wrote this on the Explorer using a Pilot Precise V5 extra fine pen, and it came out really well. You can see so much of the detail. These extra fine pens with the Explorer always really impress me. I'll put a link to them in the description of this video. It really got a lot of the detail and character of the font. Now let's do some text on a circle. And a circle is just any other path. First, let me type in some text, and I'm going to do this for any Lord of the Rings fans. I just want to make sure I've got a lot to play with. And I'm using my shortcuts 5 to jump back to the document. Now I need to get a circle, and I've always mentioned that if you hold down the control key when you're drawing or resizing things, that will do it proportionately. If you want a perfect circle, hold down the control key and then click and drag, and it will pop and give you a nice perfect circle. For my demonstration purposes, I'm making it clear, and I'll just give it a red outline. You do the fill by just clicking on any of the colors on the bottom, and the red X at the beginning is none. And you do the stroke of the object by holding down the Shift key while you choose a color. So that's how I held down Shift and clicked on the red to get that. So again, I'm selecting my circle and my text by using the pointer tool and holding down the Shift key to do a group. Or you could always come up and do Edit and select all if that's all you've got in your document. And I go to Path and put on Path. And there we go. There's my kind of Lords of the Ringy text. I've gone ahead and changed the text into something a little more readable to our non-elves out there. And you'll notice that the phrase starts over here and then goes kind of under the circle and around. And that might not be what you want. You can rotate your circle to adjust where it starts out. And to do that, you want to use the pointer tool and click on your circle. And I can tell I've clicked on the circle here because it's a small selection box that's kind of just capturing the circle. If I had done all the text by accident, I can see that it's a larger selection box that's selected all of my text. So I'm just aiming for one of these blank spots and clicking on the circle. And I've got the resize arrows, which can be helpful if I wanted to resize, and holding Control. That lets me resize the circle if I want to. But clicking once more gives me the rotation, the curved arrows. Now with the rotation arrows, if I click and hold, I can drag, and I'm doing it slowly, you don't have to do it this slow, and you'll see my starting point is rotating around the circle. And now I've got it over to the left, which kind of makes it a little easier to figure out where we're starting from. You'll also notice that the text is spaced out a little more than we like, and we can still adjust this. This is still text we can work with. I can click into it, and on the text toolbar, when we have the text tool selected, the second field here is for spacing between the letters, and I can use the arrows to take that down a little, because when we have it on the circle, it kind of fans everything out and makes it a little hard to read. So if I bring that around, I now also fit my whole phrase, so round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. And I can just play with that a little to have it look good. Everything fits. It's a little bit more legible. This font might not have been a good choice, just the way the letters aren't attached. But for our demonstration, we're okay. And remember that the text is still attached to this path, so I'm trying to get rid of that path, and it's just moving the text around. What I need to do is convert this from text to its own path. So with the pointer tool, I click on my text, Path menu, Object to Path. Now I can click on my circle, and again, I know I got the circle because it's a smaller box, and hit delete. And there's our font art. And we can save this as an SVG, and we're good to go. Another effect a lot of people like to do is having text at the top and the bottom of a circle, but not having it necessarily go around the circle like this. So let's do that. Here I have two phrases that I want to put on the top and the bottom of a circle. I recommend starting with the text you want to put on top of the circle first. Here I'm going to just draw a circle like we did before, holding down the Control key. And you don't have to change the colors if you don't want to. I just find it easier and less distracting to work kind of with a clear one. And with my circle selected, I use the pointer tool, and I have my circle selected. Holding down the Shift key, I do my first text and put it on the path. And again, the starting point's not exactly where I want it to be. I can click the circle and click the circle again to get the rotation arrows and just rotate that around to where I want it to be. And that's pretty simple. Now it gets a little more tricky. We can't have the text on the same circle. What I'm going to do in this case is click on the circle I have, and do edit and duplicate. And it just flickered, but I know I have another circle there. And with the circle selected, I already have my sizing arrows, and what I find easiest is to use the edges. And again, I'm holding down the control key while I do this, and I drag it up till it just clears the top of my text, and then I use the bottom one and drag that out until I get a nice good space on my capital letters all around. Now that I've got that other circle spaced out, I can select that circle with the pointer tool and then select my text while holding down the Shift key and do text, put on path. Now the problem is my text is still on the outside, just like I've been doing with all the other things. I want it on the inside. So what I can do is make sure I've got my circle selected with the pointer tool. And now I go to the Object menu, and in this case, I'm going to choose Flip Horizontal. Now my text is on the inside of the circle, and all I have to do is click it once more to get these rotation arrows again, and then just rotate my circle to put my text where I want it to be. Now all I have to do is select my text, and I can do these at the same time using the Shift key and do path, object to path. Now these are their own art objects, and I can get rid of my circles by clicking on them and hitting delete on the keyboard. So there I have some font art that's on the top and the bottom of a circle, and this way it kind of looks like it's actually on the same circle just because of the way I size them. Now you can definitely save this as font art and bring it into Design Space just like we did with our Under the Sea phrase. I definitely recommend going more for writing in Design Space with some of these styles. For example, this Whitman Family Farms. If you cut this, it's going to have everything angled kind of properly, but it's going to be up to you to try to put this on a circle. So if you wanted this to be more of a font art piece where you could just cut it, then you would use our techniques of moving and rotating the text, probably just more moving at this point, to kind of smush all the text together to have them cut as pieces that are curved. Let me show you an example of that. Another shortcut to try to align your circles is when you've got them set up, you can select your circles with the pointer tool, and again doing Shift so I can select both circles, and now you can come to Object and do Align and Distribute. That will open up this panel, and you can make sure that you're aligning things relative to your selection, and then you can center them on the vertical axis and then center them on the horizontal axis. And that's just these third icons on the two rows. Now the circles are perfectly aligned to each other, and you can close this panel to get rid of it. And I could even do something like bringing in the text tool and adding an ampersand and changing that to be 200 also. And because I had placed this as text, it's not ready to go into Design Space. So with my ampersand selected, I say Path, Object to Path. So to finalize this, I'll do Edit, Select All, and do Object, Ungroup, so everything's an individual. And then I will select the individual chunks, so Path and Union, and then Path and Union. Don't have to worry about the ampersand since that's on its own anyways. And I can do File, Save. And just so you know, the majority of these tools will create paths The one exception that you might be using for your text on a path is the square or rectangle tool. This creates a square object. So drawing out a square and then selecting both and doing text on a path, nothing happens. What you have to do first is click on your square or rectangle and do path, object to path. Now if you select both of them and do text, put on a path, your text works. Another thing that might be helpful is reversing your path. Maybe your text isn't going in the right direction that you'd like it to. This can happen a lot, especially with the spiral tool. So if I drag out a spiral, then just use my pointer tool to move it over, selecting the spiral and my text, and doing text, put on a path, my text started in the center, and that's not necessarily how I want it to go. I might want it to start at the outside and spiral in. What I need to do is first, edit menu, undo. Now, with my spiral selected, I do path, object to path, and then I do path again, and choose reverse. Now, if I select both my spiral and my text, and do text, put on a path, it starts at the beginning of the spiral. And I can still adjust these. And again, when I'm done, I can select my text and do path, object to path, and then click on my spiral and hit delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. So that might actually be nice to do kind of some simple phrases with a nice font and kind of make them into like flower petals or flower leaves. So these techniques definitely do lend themselves a bit more towards writing than cutting, but you can still go ahead and smush the text together and make objects just like we showed. Text on Path brings another versatile tool for you to use for font art in Inkscape to bring into your projects in Design Space. You can see things are getting a little more complicated as we're using some more features of Inkscape. Unfortunately, to accomplish things like this, you do have to delve into some of the other features. But we hope that we made it easy to understand and that you can use it in your own projects. Don't forget, for all of our videos, we're putting up a reference sheet on our website. So go to the description down below and click show more so you can see all the information we shared, including the link to our website to get that reference sheet. Don't forget to give our videos a thumbs up. Plus you can subscribe using our C2 icon here in the upper corner. We appreciate all your comments and questions too, so don't forget to leave some on our videos. We might be able to answer your question while we're working on the series. You sure? Okay, bye. On a path. Welcome to Pont 4 in our Pont Art series. There you go. You can see things are getting a little...
Laundry.
Sump pump. Laundry's over there.
Yeah, but it's because of the laundry.
We're not doing laundry.
Oh, I thought you did.
Oh?
No. All right, never mind. No, not laundry. Relax.
So don't forget to leave blah blah blah. So don't forget to leave them. We appreciate all your Yes, we do.